What's going on, movie fans? My name is Michael Weer. I love talking about movies and I love ranking movies, and that is what we're here to do today because the month of August 2025 has come to an end. And at the end of every month, right here on this channel, what I like to do is take a look back at all of the brand new releases that I had a chance to see and rank them from the worst to the best. But you guys know this is never just about my list, it's about your list as well. And so I would love to know all of the brand new releases that you had a chance to see in August of 2025 and how you would rank them from worst to best. So throw your ranked list in that comment section down below. Just keep in mind your list probably won't match my list, and that's totally okay because we all have different opinions, but that's what makes movies so much fun is we can all view the same movie and have a little bit different of an opinion, and that's really cool. Now, I did have a chance to see 10 brand new movies in August of 2025, but unfortunately, like most months, I didn't get to see absolutely everything that came out. In fact, 2 movies stick out that I really wanted to see, really wanted to include on this list, but I just didn't have time to watch them. The first one is called Strange Harvest. This is a horror mockumentary film where it's filmed like a documentary about a serial killer from 23 years ago that comes back in this film, and I was really looking forward to it. The trailers looked great, and then it only was a limited release for one weekend, and then it left theaters, and it doesn't hit streaming till mid-September. So it is a movie I will watch in the future, put on one of these ranked lists in the future, but unfortunately I missed it in the month of August. And the other movie I really wanted to see, but I just didn't have the time before creating this ranked list, is the film Caught Stealing. Caught Stealing is a Darren Aronofsky film starring both Zoe Kravitz and Austin Butler. I was excited about this film. I want to see this film still. Just like Strange Harvest, I'll have to watch it when it hits streaming, and then I will put it in a ranked list down the road. So those 2 movies will be notably missing off of this list because those were 2 movies that I was really looking forward to. But sometimes that's just how it goes. But like I said, I did see 10 movies, and I'm excited to rank them here with you guys. But before doing that, if this is the first time you found my channel, I would love for you guys to hit that subscribe button. Check out all the different content on my channel, whether you like movie reviews, Blu-ray talk, or even ranked list videos. I've got a little bit of everything on my channel, and I'd love for you guys to check it out. All right, let's get into August of 2025, ranked from the worst to the best.
Here we go.
That is one big pile of shit.
No, I shot him. Bullets in the fall killed him.
Kicking off this list at number 10, the worst movie I saw in August of 2025 and a contender for worst movie of the year is In the Lost Lands. Now, this movie actually came out in March of 25. I didn't have a chance to see it while it was in theaters, and it got terrible reviews, so I was just kind of waiting to watch it for free. So when it finally hit Hulu, I sat down and watched this movie. It actually took me 2 tries to finish this thing because it was so bad, and I'll get into all the reasons it was bad, but just to give you an idea of what this movie's about, the movie stars Mila Jovovich as a witch who gets hired by this government group to go into the Lost Lands, which is kind of a post-apocalyptic world that they're living in, and she has to look for the power of a werewolf, and her guide is played by Dave Bautista. So all of those elements, I was like, okay, there's some fantasy elements in there. This might be a fun time. And then while all of that is going on, there's this post-apocalyptic church that's chasing her down because, of course, this church doesn't like witches. So again, with those elements, I was like, you could have some fun action, you might get some fun werewolf scenes, a witch, there could be some fun magic going on in this film. And so I was genuinely excited to check this movie out, and when I sat down to watch it, like I said, it took 2 tries to get through because it was so bad. And the first reason this movie was bad was the acting. Listen, I know Mila Jovovich and Dave Bautista can act. I mean, Dave Bautista is one of the better wrestlers turned actors, and so I was hoping for some fun dialogue out of them, maybe a good back and forth, but their scenes were boring and stale, and it felt like both of them didn't want to be in this movie. Then when you get past the acting, you're like, okay, well, at least the visuals should be good because of the fantasy elements, and this whole movie looks and feels like it's filmed on a green screen, and because it's set in a post-apocalyptic world, they were like, the only color palettes we need are a dark brown or tan and a gray, and then we're good. And that's all the colors. So visually, this movie isn't fun to look at. It's not all these different magical themes popping up or this werewolf that maybe looks gross. And no, it's just black, gray, tan, brown. mash those colors together, that's the background, or that's the clothing, or that's the whole look of this entire film. It's just incredibly bland to look at the entire time. And then my final reason for making this the worst movie of August was, even if the visuals weren't going to be great, even if the story was going to be kind of messy, or even if the acting wasn't going to be great, you've got all of the elements to make a fun action movie, and they decided to slow every action scene down like they were making a Zack Snyder film, and it was just really slow and really boring. Like, I don't know how you make action scenes between a witch and a werewolf so terrible, but they found a way to do it. So between the bland colors, the bland story, the bland acting, and then the bland action, this movie fell completely on its face. I don't recommend it to anyone. In the Lost Lands is my number 10 pick and the worst movie that I saw in August of 25. That'll lead us to my number 9 pick for August of 25, and at number 9, the Netflix released film The Thursday Murder Club. This is a film that seemingly had the right components. It's a film directed by the great Chris Columbus. It's a murder mystery movie, and it has a lot of great actors and actresses in it, like Sir Ben Kingsley, Pierce Brosnan, Helen Mirren, Naomi Ackie, David Tennant. So there was a stacked cast in this film, and a movie that I was really looking forward to sitting down and watching, and it was just boring. Even with all the right components, the film was boring. It's about a couple of older people living in a retirement home or an assisted living facility where every Thursday they get together and they hold what they call the Thursday Murder Club, where they take an old cold case and they try to solve the murder mystery. But in doing so, they end up winding up in a murder mystery of their own, and now some of them are suspects, or they're trying to figure out who did it, and all the while you, the viewer, are also trying to figure it out because you're not shown who the killer is either. So again, a murder mystery movie that had the right components, but again, it was just boring throughout. Watching these people go through about their daily lives was kind of boring. The murder mystery part was interesting until it started breaking down who it possibly could have been. And when you get down to who it could have been, it's some boring picks. The movie decides to spend more time sort of going through the lives of these older people and their families, their spouses, their wives, their sisters, their daughters, going through all of their different backgrounds than it does spend time with the actual murder mystery investigation. There's some good acting in this film by the people I previously mentioned, so that's probably my biggest positive of this film, especially seeing Pierce Brosnan in anything. He's forever my James Bond, so I love watching Pierce Brosnan on the screen. But for the negatives in this movie, outside of being boring, the story just goes off in way too many directions, to the point where when you get to the end, to the murder mystery whodunit, you don't care. And that's not good for a murder mystery film, so that's why The Thursday Murder Club is number 9. At number 8, we have the Hulu released film Eenie Meenie, starring Samara Weaving as the title character of this film. And you find out at the beginning of this movie that as a teenager, her father taught her how to be a getaway driver. And I wish we could have seen some of that teaching. Instead, they just sort of expect you to go with it. And then after one very brief scene at the beginning, it time jumps to today when Samara Weaving's character, Eenie Meenie, is an adult and wanting to get away from that life. So you never really get to see her in her prime in that life. This is her just trying to get away from it all, trying to go to school, trying to just be better with her life. And then, of course, she gets dragged back into that life by a crime organization led by Andy Garcia's character. And there are some moments in this movie, some getaway driver moments that I enjoyed as someone who just likes to watch car chases. But other than that, this movie just expects you to go along with the plot no matter what happens. For instance, the thing that bothered me the most in this movie is that the whole movie leads to a heist where Samara Weaving's character needs to rob a casino. In broad daylight, she's going to walk into a casino, fill a trunk of a car that is up for someone to win with cash, get in the car, and drive away in front of all these people, and she's not even going to wear a mask. And they do throw out there, oh, we'll blind the cameras so that nobody can see who's getting in the car. But there's so many eyewitnesses, including security and police, that see her face that eventually she would get caught. But the movie expects you just to ignore that because, well, we don't want to cover her face. Let her just be her. She gets in the car, she drives away. And I was like, okay, maybe I can go along with that if this movie's going to end with her going to some island in the Caribbean where she's going to spend all her money and she's going to live her life. But no, she buys a house down the street from the casino that she robbed at the end of the film because she's a good person. We got to just let her be a good person. person. And none of that worked for me. Again, when you ask me to just suspend logic, I can do that to a point. But when it's so blatant that you didn't know how to write the ending for these characters, and we're like, well, we just want them all to have a happy ending. So that's what we'll give her. It didn't work for me. Speaking of movies that ask you to suspend too much logic, we have the number 7 movie on this list, and it is Locked. Locked is a film that came out earlier this year as well. Again, I didn't have a chance to see it until it finally hit Hulu, and so I watched this movie, and it stars both Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins, so you've got two great actors in this film, and Bill Skarsgård plays a guy who's down on his luck, sort of checking cars every morning to see if any of them are unlocked so he can steal something out of them, and one day in a parking lot, he finds this beautiful SUV that's unlocked. Assuming he's going to be able to steal something out of it, he hops in, shuts the door behind him, and doesn't realize that he's now locked himself into this car. There's absolutely no way out of this car. It's got bulletproof reinforced glass. It's got no lock system on the inside of the car, no handles. He's stuck inside of this car. And he's being monitored by Anthony Hopkins' character, who set this whole thing into motion, because this character has been looking to teach a lesson to a criminal, and so this just happened to happen. Now, if that was as far as this movie went, I could buy into it. I could buy into a car that's secured from the inside, and Anthony Hopkins' character has a bunch of different tasers in the seats, and he's got different things in the car, like making it get extremely hot or making it get extremely cold. And if that was the wackiest this movie was going to get, I could have suspended any sort of logic, like people checking in on the car, a tow company coming to this parking lot, taking the car away, anything like that. I could have left it alone, but no, they have to go too far. And at one point, they decide that this car can be remote controlled by Anthony Hopkins, and he can take it all over the city. And the problem I have with that isn't that we don't have the ability to remote into cars, or that cars can't drive themselves, because obviously that technology exists. It's just so advanced. Like, Anthony Hopkins is able to be a precision driver, barely missing things, going after people, driving around. I mean, he has a perfect, he is sitting in the driver's seat and is a great driver, but he's not. He's doing everything from his house, from his apartment. He's able to control this car. And it's just so wildly outlandish after a while that I was like, okay, this movie just completely jumped the shark in the worst possible way. But even with that suspense of logic that really irritates me, I think the thing that irritated me even more is you had the ability with these two actors to have a really interesting conversation about criminals, about people down on their luck, about people that have been wronged by criminals, and maybe the justice system hasn't done everything they wanted it to do. Sort of like the film Law Abiding Citizen. While there was a lot going on in that movie, I loved the conversations that were being had between both Jamie Foxx and Gerard Butler's character about a guy who just thought the system had wronged him too much, and so he was going after the people that helped destroy the system. And then Jamie Foxx's character just being caught sort of in between the lines, sort of a blurred area of doing the right thing. And I thought both of them in that movie were able to portray that really well, and that's what I was hoping for out of this movie, especially when you learn about Anthony Hopkins' character thinking that all criminals deserve this kind of treatment. There was definitely a conversation they could have had between those characters in this movie that would have portrayed those ideas a little bit, but instead you've got Bill Skarsgård's character trying to get out of this car the whole time. You feel bad for him because he's just a dad that's down on his luck and trying to get by, so you never really buy into what Anthony Hopkins is doing. And then on Anthony Hopkins' side, you don't really buy into Bill Skarsgård deserving to get away just without any sort of issue. So it just left me in the middle and ultimately not caring who was going to win this exchange between these two characters. And so because of that, not caring by the end of it, that's why this movie's number 7. Better than the other movies I already talked about, but definitely a movie I won't go back to in the future. That'll bring me to my number 6 pick for August of 25. And from here on out on the list, these are all movies that I had a really fun time with and movies I would rewatch in the future. And at number 6, we have the comedy The Naked Gun. And this felt like comedy actually coming back as something that I think has been lacking in movie theaters for a very long time, are just straight up comedies where you can have a really fun time. They can say things that go a little bit over the line, and that's what comedy's supposed to do. It's supposed to find the line, and then it's supposed to go past it. And most of the time, at least for the last 10 years or so, comedy seems to be cringe or self-deprecation of a character, but never finding the line of society and going over it. And that's what I think The Naked Gun does so well. It finds the lines and then it goes over it. It says words that you're not supposed to say in society. It does things that you're not supposed to say in society. And because of that, all of those elements just made this that much funnier. And maybe if this was released 10 to 15 years ago, it would have just been another comedy, maybe not the best comedy I'd seen in a while. But now in 2025, this film feels like the funniest movie I've seen in the past 10 years. And there were all kinds of jokes in this movie. It wasn't just stuff crossing the line. There were also just dumb comedy jokes like Liam Neeson driving down the road. He's always getting handed a cup of coffee. And so while he's driving, somebody hands him a cup of coffee. There were dumb jokes is my point, but there were also some really funny jokes that went over the line of societal norms. And then there's that whole scene with a snowman. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I just died laughing throughout that entire scene. I loved everything with the snowman, wanted a lot more of it. So The Naked Gun, had a lot of fun with it. It's a movie I'll rewatch in the future, and it's number 6. We've made it to the top 5, and at number 5, we have another streaming release film, this one called The Pickup. This movie released on Amazon Prime, and it stars both Pete Davidson and Eddie Murphy as armored truck drivers who get robbed by Keke Palmer's crew. What I really liked about this movie was the back and forth between both Eddie Murphy and Pete Davidson. Eddie Murphy playing the more veteran armored truck driver, the guy trying to get out of the business, start his own thing, kind of irritated that he has to be with the young rookie, and the young rookie being Pete Davidson, who's up and coming, kind of a dumbass, pulled his gun on a girl in a bank accidentally at the beginning of the film. So the dynamic between the two of them really worked for me, and this is more of an action comedy because it's about a heist and it's also comedy, and so I thought they worked in the action really well to this movie. There's a great action chase scene between the armored truck and the crew trying to rob them towards the beginning of this film that I really enjoyed. One of the better chase scenes that I've seen in a movie this year. I really enjoyed that. So they blended the action and the comedy really well together. I enjoyed everybody on the screen. And there's a joke at the end of this film that Pete Davidson makes to Eddie Murphy's character that caught me completely off guard, made me laugh out loud. That's probably why I put this movie over The Naked Gun, because while that movie was funny, there was no like shockingly funny moments in my opinion. Maybe the snowman, but the thing with Pete Davidson, what he says, just one line that he gives, and it really made me laugh out loud. At number 4, we have the hard-hitting action flick Nobody 2. This film is the sequel to Nobody that came out a couple of years ago. It once again brings back Bob Odenkirk as the unlikely assassin named Hutch. And I say unlikely because this guy does not look like your John Wick level of violence character. He looks more like a lawyer or somebody maybe you would call. I've really got to stop saying that. But in this film, he once again comes back as that character, but instead of being wrapped up in an assassin world, he just wants to go on vacation with his wife and kids. So they go on vacation to this little town that seems like it's out of the way and it's not going to have any problems or fighting. And they immediately get wrapped up in a cartel and he has to go back to doing assassin stuff, which is where the action comes into this movie, which was definitely my favorite part of this film. Because if you like John Wick level of action, and let's be honest, that's the bar right now. It's John Wick level of action. If you like that, well, that's what you're going to get in this film with a little bit of a goofy twist. Because again, all of the people are not taking him serious. So maybe they've lowered their guard a little bit when they're taking him on because they don't expect him to be able to bring that kind of violence. Oh, but he definitely can. And you, the viewer, know that. So whenever it starts to ramp up, it gets so fun, especially a scene in an arcade or one on a boat or just the whole third act of this film where they turn an amusement park into a shooting gallery, hand-to-hand combat gallery. All of the action in this movie worked for me. I loved once again seeing Christopher Lloyd reprise his role as the grandpa. He was a lot of fun. I guess maybe the only negative I had in this movie was the main villain of this film. She was almost too goofy for this film. And while this is an action flick with a goofy premise, I think they should have had the main villain of this movie stay like a laser-focused villain. She shouldn't have been dancing around to music that was playing in her AirPods. Like, it should have just been a straightforward villain who does maybe underestimate this guy a little bit, but at the same time, she's serious the whole time. That would have played so much better for me. Instead, they kind of dumb her down or they make her goofy because, well, it's a goofy premise, kind of a goofy movie, might as well have a goofy villain. And that's not something they did in the first movie, and that was a misstep in this one, in my opinion. I think had the villain been stronger, this would have been a couple spots higher on my list because I did genuinely have a fun time with Nobody 2. Kicking off the top 3, we have a film that was in my top 10 most anticipated movies movies of 2025 list, and it is Freakier Friday. And I completely understand that the majority of fun that I had with this film was just based on nostalgia for that original Freaky Friday film starring Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan. But I don't care if it's nostalgia that drew me into this movie or made me have so much fun with this movie. I loved sitting down with my wife and kids, watching this on opening day, watching Lindsay Lohan come back, watching Jamie Lee Curtis come back. The two of them working together again was so awesome. I do think the story was a little bit too convoluted. You could have had the teenage daughter storyline cut out of the movie and just had the two of them, both Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, swap bodies again. That would have been fine. We could have run that back because it's been so long since that first movie, but they did include the teenagers. And I guess if you want just a little bit more nostalgia, that means they had to go to high school, which means they were able to bring back the high school teacher from the first film. So I guess there was a reason to include them. Otherwise, it would have been kind of weird trying to find a way to get them back to school. But overall, I had a really fun time with this movie. Oh, also, we got Chad Michael Murray back in this movie. I'm a huge Chad Michael Murray fan. So again, the casting for this movie is one of the things I loved about it. But I also really enjoyed some of the laughs in this film, or just the overall emotional portion of this film. The two of them, both Jamie Lee Curtis's character and Lindsay Lohan's character, having to figure things out together again. It's what made that first movie so special, and it once again helps make this movie special. I had a really fun time with Freakier Friday. Does it belong at number 3 on my list? Maybe not, but nostalgia told me it had to be in the top 3 for August of 25. At number 2, we have the body horror film Together. This film stars both Dave Franco and Alison Brie, and it's a movie I really enjoyed the first time I watched it, and I would love to watch it a second time to see if I like it a little bit more or I like it a little bit less, because there were some interesting themes going on in this film. You've got a couple who are together in life. They live together, they're boyfriend and girlfriend, but they're pretty separated on a lot of things. Like, for instance, there's seems to be a bit of resentment from Dave Franco's character because his girlfriend's job of being a school teacher seems to be taking off. They move at the beginning of the film from the city where he likes to live to the country area, and one day they're on a hike and they come in contact with this substance that I won't give away here, but that is something that forces their bodies to want to merge together, and that's where you get the body horror element of this film, because once they realize what's happening, they have to try and stay away from each other, but they almost go into a trance-like state whenever they're getting away from each other. Their bodies want to join together physically, so you get some pretty nasty body horror moments throughout this film that I really enjoyed. Again, the story is interesting enough. I just think they kind of rushed it at the end. That's kind of what's holding this movie back from my number 1 spot on this list, well, other than the number 1 movie, but we'll get to that in a second. But I do think they rushed that last act. They took their time, sort of slow burning the first 2 acts of this film, letting these characters figure things out, and letting you sit with these characters as they dealt with this really horrific thing that's happening to their bodies. But when you get to the 3rd act, they just throw everything at the wall, and they almost throw too much at you, the viewer, and the characters. Like, there's so much to explain in the 3rd act of this film that they actually have the characters separate from each other and learn about it in 2 different locations, so you, the viewer, can be caught up on everything. But by the end of the film, I didn't feel like the 2 of them had a full picture of what was going on. You had sort of one learning half of it here, one learning half of it over here. You learned all of it, but they didn't, and it felt rushed because of that. And then the end, the way it ended, I thought it was really interesting. Again, a very interesting concept, but I don't know if I loved it. I liked it a lot. Not sure if I loved it. So that's why Together is number 2. This is a movie that if I have the chance to see before the end of the year another time, it could go up on my list or down on my list, just depending on how I feel. And that leads me to my number 1 pick for August of 2025, but not just my favorite movie of August 2025, it's also my favorite horror movie for the entire year so far, and it is Weapons. Weapons is directed by Zach Krieger, the same director that made Barbarian a couple of years ago, and that was a great edge-of-your-seat horror film where you really didn't know where you were going next. The twists and turns in that movie were completely unpredictable, and I loved that movie. So when I heard he was making another horror movie, this time time involving missing children. I got excited for it. I thought the trailers for this movie, the hype around this movie was really well done. And then when you get into the movie itself, yeah, it's about this classroom of kids that just goes missing in the middle of the night. All of these kids came from the same classroom. So, of course, their teacher, played by Julia Garner, is the main suspect in the town. Not necessarily by the police. Her alibis check out. They don't have her as a suspect, but the parents are not taking no for an answer. And all of that is sort of wrapped up into one of the parents, played by Josh Brolin's character. He's the parent you see the most of in this film, and he believes she definitely has something to do with it. So he's going around town trying to figure out what she's doing and where these kids went. She's going around town, even though her principal of her school has told her, hey, stay away from this. You don't want any part of it. We believe you, so don't go near it. Let the police do their job. But she can't. She has to try and figure out what happened to these kids because she cares about these kids. And there are some great, well-placed jump scares throughout this movie with so much tension in it. But outside of the jump scares, the tension, the horror, this movie also made me laugh. And not just me, I was in a packed out theater for this film. And so it got everybody to laugh. And when you can have people at the edge of their seat covering their mouths wondering what's going to happen next, they can't believe the horrific things they're seeing, but then just a couple scenes later make everybody laugh and sort of bring that tension down a little bit just to ramp that tension back up of what's going to happen in the third act of this film. I thought it was a masterclass in directing. I thought this was a fantastic horror film, one that I will watch several more times going forward. So again, it's my number one pick for August of 2025, but it's also my favorite horror movie of 2025 so far. Horror is going to have to really step its game up for the rest of the year to be better than this movie, in my opinion. And guys, those are all the brand new movies that I had a chance to see in August of 2025. I hope you guys enjoyed this list. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you've got a list of brand new films that you had a chance to see, don't forget to throw that in the comment section down below. And finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my August 2025 movies ranked from worst to best video. I love making these ranked list videos. Getting to talk about these movies one more time at the end of every month is so much fun. If you want more of my thoughts on any of these movies, well, I did quick reactions to all of these films that I just talked about in this video, and I did full movie reviews for several of these as well. All of that can be found on my YouTube channel. And going forward, I'm really looking forward to watching and reviewing so many more movies in 2025. But until then, if you want to check out any of the other content on my channel, well, I've got all of my best and worst of 2025 right there, and I've got all of my 2025 movie reviews right there.